Welcome to this session on contemporary socio-political philosophy. In this session, we discuss Mahatma Gandhi's theory of Satyagraha. The theory of Satyagraha, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a great personality and humanistic thinker of 20th century. In human world, such thinkers or personalities are born in whose theory and practice there might be complete uniformity. The ideas which Gandhi put before human world, he put them in practice his own life to the maximum extent possible. The technique of Satyagraha is one of them. The word Satyagraha is Sanskrit in origin. It is a compound word formed of Satya meaning truth and Agraha meaning clinging, that is, clinging to truth. The literal meaning of Satyagraha is insistence on truth and force derivable from such insistence in order to cure evil. Satyagraha therefore means adherence to truth. Adherence to truth is also adherence to that which is truly real within us, our spirit. Satyagraha is truth force, but truth is soul or spirit. It is therefore also soul force. In English, it is translated as truth force or love force or soul force. It is a particular philosophy and practice within the broader overall category generally known as non-violent resistance or civil resistance. Satyagraha is an ethical weapon used only by men inclined to the ethical way of life. Gandhi thus concludes that Satyagraha is soul force as opposed to armed weapon strength. Self-purification is another name of Satyagraha. It means that Satyagraha is the soul force attainable by self-purification. It is also defined as an attitude of mind. It is also defined as a kind of education in the real sense of the term and as the important tool for the people's education and awakening. Gandhi discovered the term Satyagraha during his endless non-violent resistance movement against racial discrimination in South Africa, and he deployed Satyagraha also in Indian independence movement. According to Gandhi, Satyagraha is just a new for the law of suffering. It is a relentless search for truth and a determination to reach truth without resorting to hatred, rancor, ill will or animosity. It is an action-oriented search and adherence to truth and a non-violent fight against untruth. For Gandhi, it was a way of life of living in truth. Satyagraha is a force that works silently and apparently slowly. It can be used by individuals as well as communities. It may be used by political as in domestic affairs. It can be used alike by men, women and children. It is an ethical and spiritual weapon used only by men inclined to the ethical way of life. Satyagraha is utter self-effacement, greatest humiliation, greatest patience and brightest faith. It is its own reward. It is gentle, never wounds. It must not be the result of anger or malice. It was conceived as a complete substitute for violence. It teaches us the art of living as well as dying. Satyagraha is the unification of two most important principles, Satya and Ahimsa. The word Satya, truth, is derived from Sat, which means being. Nothing is or exists in reality except truth. That is why Sat or truth is the most important name of God. So it is said that truth is God and God is truth. Devotion to this truth is the sole justification for our existence. All our activities should be centered in truth. Truth should be the very breath of our life. There should be truth in thought, truth in speech, and truth in action. Gandhi compares Satyagraha to a banyan tree in which Satya, that is the truth, and Ahimsa, that is non-violence, together represent the parent trunk with innumerable branches. Truth is impossible without love. Hence, Satyagraha is the truth force or the love force. With Satya combined with Ahimsa, we can bring the world our fate. Satyagraha in its essence is nothing but the introduction of truth. Gandhi mentions three principles of Satyagraha. The first principle deals with the goal, the second with the means, and the third principle with the results of Satyagraha. From the law point of view, the goal is the service of people, and from the higher it is moksha. Regarding means and ends, Gandhi says that whatever is achieved by certain means can be retained by the same means. A thing achieved by force can be retained only by force, and that which has been won by love can be retained only by love alone. Hence, whatever is achieved by Satyagraha can be retained only by Satyagraha, and it is impossible to retain by physical force that which has been achieved by Satyagraha. The result of Satyagraha is invariably good if the principles are followed strictly. It can be practiced without thinking of the result. It makes no difference whether the result is achieved or not. Satyagrahi. Someone who practices Satyagraha is a Satyagrahi. A Satyagrahi is one who gives up his everything for the sake of truth. He renounces his property, parts from his relatives, and sacrifices his own life. He enjoys the highest degree of freedom as he is fearless, never becomes a slave of another. Strict adherence to truth for many years changes the Satyagrahi into a realized, a perfect man. No other power can intimidate him from completing his work, since he is afraid of none but God. A Satyagrahi must have faith in truth and pursue only truth. He should be indifferent to wealth, and truths always do not coexist. He must be a man of God who will compel reverence and love even of the opponent by the purity of his life, the utter unselfishness of his mission, and the breadth of outlook. His endeavor is to build up such a classless society by means of a constructive program. Satyagrahi is obliged to break away from family attachments. He alone can be Satyagrahi who has true faith in religion, who leaves everything to God and lives in contentment and happiness. But he is never defeated in this world. Knowing that his body has been given by God, he tries to be a worthy tenant by having healthy and sound constitution, having his tongue under the control in order to control his speech and palate, has no false notion of prestige or status, and has a sense of fortitude. Qualifications of a Satyagrahi. Number 1. He must have a living faith in God and true religion. Number 2. He must believe in truth and non-violence. Number 3. He must be leading a chaste life. Number 4. He must be a habitual khadi wearer and spinner. Number 5. He must be free from the use of intoxicants. Number 6. He must not harbor ill will or bitterness. Number 7. He will always try to overcome evil by good, anger by love, untruth by truth, and himsa by ahimsa. Basic postulates of Satyagraha. Number 1. Truth. It is the core of Gandhian philosophy of Satyagraha. Satyagrahi minus truth is zero. Satyagraha is based on truth. For Gandhi, it was not a mere perception of truth which mattered. What was more important for him was speaking the truth, acting the truth, and realizing the truth in every breath of life and action. Gandhi identified God with truth. According to Gandhi, truth is God and God is truth. So, in our fight for social change, we must hold fast to truth and truth alone. Number 2. Non-violence. To Gandhi, the path of truth is narrow as it is straight. As a result, truth and non-violence are inseparable. It is impossible to realize perfect truth without non-violence. Satyagraha is impossible without non-violence. It literally means non-killing or non-injury. It is such a state of physical and mental discipline that can move the code of human heart and bring a change of heart in the so-called enemies. Number 3. Faith in God. Gandhi emphasizes that a Satyagrahi must be a believer in God. A Satyagrahi has no other stay but God. One who has any other stay or depends on any other help cannot offer Satyagraha. Number 4. Brotherhood of man. To Gandhi, brotherhood of man means that we are one of another. It means that you cannot injure your neighbor without injuring yourself or vice versa. Satyagraha aims at change of heart through non-violent, noble and friendly action. Number 5. Supremacy of moral law. Satyagraha is based on moral force, the force of truth and justice, the force of self-purification and self-suffering. Gandhi made Satyagraha the moral equivalent of war. It is a way of life based on the laws of love and holiness. Insistence of moral means does not imply that evil, injustice, tyranny and exploitation are to be tolerated. VOWS of Satyagraha. For the success of Satyagraha and in order to make the Satyagrahi intellectually, morally and spiritually strong enough to withstand enough all temptations, provocations and inflictions, Gandhi prescribed certain cardinal principles or VOWS, a code of conduct to be observed by them. The VOWS fall into two categories. principal and subsidiary. The principal VOWS include truth, that is Satya, non-violence, that is Ahimsa, celibacy, that is brahmcharya, control of the palate, non-stealing and non-possession, that is aparigraha. The subsidiary VOWS consist of social and religious equimindedness, bread labor, swadeshi, fearlessness and humility. Number 1. Truth. We must be truthful in thought, word and deed. Truth is to be realized by devoted constant practice and indifference to all other interests in life. The realization of truth can only be attained by the man of pure detachment. Number 2. Non-violence. It literally means non-killing or non-injury. It is not enough to take the life of any living being. The follower of this vow may not hurt physically or mentally even those whom he believes to be unjust. He may not agree with them, he must love them. Number 3. Celibacy or brahmcharya. This vow mentioned that one does not look upon any woman with a lustful eye. He has to control his animal passions. If he is married, he will not have a carnal mind regarding his wife, but will consider her as his lifelong friend and will establish with her the relationship of perfect purity. Number 4. Control of the palate. This vow is the first essential in the observance of the vow of brahmacharya. An aspirant and striver for brahmacharya should cultivate a feeling that he is eating not to satisfy the palate but just to keep body, mind and soul in perfect health. Number 5. Non-stealing. To take another person's property without his knowledge or permission, or in the belief that it is an unclaimed property, is no doubt an act of stealing. In his opinion, all amassing of wealth above and beyond one's legitimate requirements is theft. Number 6. Non-possession or aparigraha. It is not enough not to possess and keep much, but it is necessary not to keep anything which may not be absolutely necessary for our bodily wants. Thus, if one can do without chairs, one should do so. The follower of this vow will therefore, by constant reflection, simplify his life. The Satyagrahi should also follow the subsidiary vows. He should be a firm believer in social and religious equality and in the equality of sexes. A Satyagrahi must earn his bread and other primary needs of life by laboring with his hands. He should require the use of simple and simple-made clothing to the exclusion of even fancy buttons, foreign cuts, etc. And so will Swadeshi be applied to every department of life. He should be free from the fear of kings, people, caste, families, thieves, robbers, and even death. Detachment, openness, tranquility of mind, absence of prejudice, mildness, forgiveness, etc. are altogether called humility. It should be the quality of a Satyagrahi. Forms and techniques of Satyagraha. The forms of Satyagraha admit of various methods to be used in successive stages. The most important of among them are basic education and other items of constructive program, persuasion through reason, persuasion through change of heart by self-suffering, and persuasion through non-violent direct action or non-violent non-cooperation, which may take the forms of strike, picketing, boycott and hijrat, ultimately culminating in civil disobedience. Basic education. Gandhi aimed at the all-round development of man's physical, mental, moral and spiritual faculties. So he devised a scheme of basic education which aimed at the all-round development of man. He described the system of basic education will lay the foundation of a juster social order in which there is no unnatural division between the haves and have-nots. Constructive programs. It was an integral and positive aspect of Gandhi's Satyagraha movement. It was employed for the promotion of communal harmony and removal of social evils like untouchability, unemployment and illiteracy. It is designed to build up the nation from the very bottom. Handling of Satyagraha without the constructive program is like a paralyzed hand attempting to lift a spoon. Constructive program consists of communal unity, removal of untouchability, prohibition, khadi, other village industries, village sanitation, basic education, adult education, uplift of women, education in health and hygiene, provincial languages, propagation of Rashtrabhasha, promotion of economic equality, kisans, labor, adivasis, lepers and students. Conversion through persuasive argumentation. Along with education and constructive program, it is necessary to bring about revolution by conversion through rational and gentle persuasion. A Satyagrahi has first of all to try to conceive his opponent by reason and mobilize public opinion against the evil which he is out to eradicate. When public opinion is sufficiently roused against an evil, the strongest will not dare to practice. An intelligent and awakened public opinion is the most potent weapon of a Satyagrahi. Conversion through self-suffering. According to Gandhi, the next step that the Satyagrahi has to take in the direction of meaning the evil do from the evil is to appeal to his heart by patient self-suffering, sympathy, sincerity and humility. Voluntary self-suffering opens the eyes of the evildoer. Having failed to convince the evildoer merely by reason, the Satyagrahi seeks by means of self-suffering. Fasting. It is the most delicate form of Satyagraha. It aims at self-purification and concentrates the energy of the soul and forces the opponent to see reason. Gandhi was himself the author of fasting. It is a way of personal cleansing and penance. Gandhi enunciated certain general principles and conditions under which a Satyagrahi could resort to fasting. He should fast only as a last resort when all the avenues of redress have been explored and have failed. Suffering even unto death is the last weapon of a Satyagrahi. Fasting should be undertaken either for self-purification or self-restraint. It should be employed only as a species of tyaga and never as a method of exercising under pressure on the opposite party. Non-violent non-cooperation. It is a sacred duty and an alternative to anarchy. It is the most expeditious method known to the world of winning our opponents. It indeed means renunciation of the benefits of a system with which we non-cooperate. According to Gandhi, non-cooperation is a measure of discipline and self-sacrifice without which no nation can make real progress. It may take the form of strike, picketing, boycott, hartal, very peaceful stoppage of work, and hijrat, that is deshatyaga, ultimately culminating in civil disobediences. Disobedience. It is an active, strong and extreme form of Satyagraha. It is a necessary part of non-cooperation. It is conceived as a substitute for violence or armed rebellion. It is a protest against unjust laws. Its ultimate aim is to substitute voluntary cooperation for involuntary cooperation and willing obedience for forced obedience. It can be practiced only as a last resort. It is of two types, offensive and defensive. Either of the two types may be offered by single individuals as completely independent units or by masses collectively. Now, let us see some limitations of Satyagraha. Gandhi's Satyagraha had moral and political significance, but it also suffered from several limitations. Gandhi rightly argued that human beings are generally affected by the suffering of others and regret that suffering even if they are unable or unwilling to do anything about it. If they thought the suffering deserved, their reaction would be different. Gandhi was wrong to argue that Satyagraha never failed and that it was effective under all conditions. To his credit, he insisted that it was meant to succeed and achieve results. It was an article of faith for him that all human beings had souls which could be touched and activated. He said that Satyagraha presupposes a sense of decency on the part of the opponent, an open society in which his brutality can be exposed, and a neutral body of opinion that can be mobilized against him. Gandhi insisted violence need not be accompanied by hatred and ill will or be uncontrolled. Like non-violence, it too can be restrained, measured, born out of love for both the victims and the perpetrators of injustice, and used to arrest human degradation. Now, let us summarize the session. This session introduces Mahatma Gandhi's technique of Satyagraha against the evils that are prevalent in a society. Here we discuss about the origin and meaning of Satyagraha. Satyagraha is based on the two pillars that are truth and non-violence. The one who practices Satyagraha is known as Satyagrahi. A Satyagrahi should qualify certain qualities. Here also mention about it. The basic postulates of Satyagraha mentioned here have great importance nowadays. The basic postulates included truth, non-violence, supremacy of moral law, faith in God, brotherhood of man, etc. Here also mentioned the important vows which should be taken by a Satyagrahi. There are principal vows and subsidiary vows that should be undertaken by a Satyagrahi. Finally, it describes about the different forms and techniques of Satyagraha and also its limitation. Now, try to work out the given assignments. Number 1. Explain the origin and meaning of Satyagraha. Number 2. Describe the qualifications of a Satyagrahi. Number 3. Discuss briefly about the basic postulates of Satyagraha. Number 4. Mention the vows that should taken by a Satyagrahi. Number 5. Evaluate the different forms of Satyagraha. Now, I can suggest some books for your further studies. 1. Mahatma Gandhi's Philosophy of Satyagraha, written by Thakur Gaurikant, published by Kishore Vidyaniketan, Varanasi in 1988. 2. The Story of My Experiments with Truth, an autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, published by Navjeevan Publishing House, Ahmedabad in 1956. Satyagraha in South Africa, written by Mahatma Gandhi, first edition, published by S. Ganeshan, Madras in 1928. 4. Fundamentals of Gandhism, written by Mishra Datta Anil, published by Mittal Publications, New Delhi in 1955. 5. Mahatma Gandhi's View of Satyagraha, written by Sharma M.L., published by Gandhi Bhavan Newsletter, University of Delhi, Volume 11 in 1989. 6. Saga of Satyagraha, written by Divakar R.K., published by Gandhi Peace Foundation, New Delhi in 1969. Thank you for watching this session. See you next time. Until then, bye.